What's going on, everybody? Sean Daniel with Guitar Control here, and there are two things that at some point confuse every guitar player. Number one, the list price of a Gibson Les Paul Standard. Number two, the modes. So today we're going to clear up the second one there and kind of give you an introduction to modes if it's something that maybe you've heard about and you just kind of want to get a little bit of an intro on. But before that, make sure you click the link in the description because I'm going to tab out the first octave of each of the 7 modes that we're going to kind of briefly discuss right now. So once you have that ready, let's get right into it. So what is a mode? Basically, it all comes from the major scale, okay? And when I think of like the word mode, I generally think of being a child of the 90s video games. And you can play the same video game on different levels or modes of difficulty, like easy, medium, or hard. The thing about that is you're playing the exact same video game, but you're playing them on a different mode, and it kind of alters the experience, but it's the same game. I think of modes and scales in the exact same way. And the example we're going to use to illustrate this is going to be the A major scale. So the first thing on that sheet that I tabbed out here is just going to be the A major scale. And we're going to do 2 octaves of it, right? So we're going to start with the root note on A, which is the 5th fret of the E string. And we're going to go 5E to 7E, 4, 5, 7 on the A string, 4, 6, 7 on the D string, and if you want to do the next octave, it'll be 4, 6, 7 on the G string, 5, 7 on the B string, 4, 5, and you can even go up to the B on the high E string, right? Now, why is that important? The major scale is the number one most important thing you should learn in music because pretty much all of Western music comes from the major scale, and the modes are just different parts of the major scale starting on a different note. So what that means, let me break that out, because sometimes listening to people talk about the modes can be brutally painful at first. It took me probably 100 people explaining it to me in different ways before I really truly got it. But all it is the major scale. We have 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and usually we end on that first note again, the octave. Now, so every one of those notes has its own kind of scale or mode that goes with it. It can become a different position, a different shape, and we're going to illustrate that in a second. But first, the first mode of the major scale is this one right here, the major scale, also called Ionian. They all kind of have like weird Greek names. They can kind of scare you at first, but all it is just an order. So the first mode of the major scale is the major scale, the Ionian mode. Now, if we start on the second note, the B, B has its own mode. We can play 7 notes in a row from B, the exact same 7 notes in the same order, but we're not starting on the A, we're starting on the B. It'll sound like this. The exact same 7 notes in the same order, but it kind of already has a little bit different feel. And that's kind of where all this comes into and where it becomes valuable. So first we're going to just learn different positions of the major scale, think of them as modes, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about how we can make them more useful in a musical setting. So there are 7 notes, there are 7 modes, 7 positions, but the great thing is you only really have to remember 2, and you can alter the rest of them from those 2. And the 2 we're going to talk about first are the major and minor scale, also referred to as the Ionian and Aeolian modes. So, again, in A, the first mode is just the A major scale, the Ionian mode, okay? Now, if we played the same 7 notes but started on the 6th note, and again, the notes of A major are A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. You don't even have to remember that, but it can be very helpful to know the names of it. Now, so let's say we started on the 6th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, F sharp. And we're actually going to play a lower F sharp right here. The 2nd fret on the E is also an F sharp. Now, the 6th mode of any major scale is going to be the minor scale. So you've probably already played this a million times. There's that first octave of the F sharp minor scale. The frets being 2, 4, 5 on the E string, 2, 4, 5 on the A string, 2, 4 on the D string, okay? So this is actually the 6th mode, the Aeolian mode, F sharp's mode in the key of A. Same notes, same order, starting on the F sharp, also known as the relative minor, if you've ever heard of something like that. Always happens on the 6th note of the major scale. So we have 2 shapes, and I like to kind of think of shapes as you can use fingerings. If every fret gets its own finger, the major scale would be middle, pinky, index, ring, pinky. And the minor scale would be index, ring, pinky, index, ring, pinky, index, ring. Now, those are just 2 shapes that every good guitar player should know, and the modes are just going to be those exact same shapes with 1 alteration for the most part. So we're going to go into the second mode of the major scale. And again, in A, we're going to start on a B. But instead of playing it here, like I did in the first example, we're going to think of this as its own kind of root note in a new position. So this is going to be the second mode, otherwise known as the Dorian mode. Now, the names of them, again, are not important. It's just important to kind of see how you can kind of switch between them. And basically, it's the exact same thing as the minor scale we did on F sharp, but one alteration, and it's going to look like this. Index, ring, pinky, index, ring, reach, index, ring. So we have what's called a sharp 6. What that means in relative to the minor scale, if we play the minor scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we take that 6th note, sharpen it, go up higher a fret, we'd end up with the frets would be 7, 9, 10, 7, 9, 11, 7, 9. So again, the minor scale, the Dorian mode, sharp 6. Now all that is, that gives you the notes of A major, but you're starting in a new position. So the great thing is you can be playing in A, and then you can kind of see in your mind this shape. So let's actually just kind of focus in on this real quick before we go to the next one. Let's look at the 9th fret on the A string and the 11th fret on the A string, which those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th and 6th notes of B's mode. So if we're playing something in the key of A, we could play like an A chord. We know because of this mode shape that these notes are going to sound good. So you can kind of like maybe navigate up to this spot from like the minor scale, minor pentatonic. There's a lot of different things you can do. So we're just kind of like training your mind's eye to see pieces of the fretboard through these modal positions. So we've got A major, we've got B, Dorian. Again, the name of it isn't important, it's just the second mode. Let's go to the third one. This is going to be the C sharp. And then we're going to do the same thing, but now we've got the minor scale with a flat 2. So instead of playing the regular 2 in the minor scale, we're going to play a flat 2. So it goes index, middle, pinky, index, ring, pinky. That's the only difference. This is called the Phrygian mode, the third one. Has kind of a darker sound because right off the bat you get that, almost that sinister sounding flat 2. Right? They all have kind of distinct sounds. And again, I think it's good to learn the positions first and then kind of like train your ear to hear the differences between a flat 2, a sharp 6, the minor scale. But basically, they're the same shape with one alteration. Okay? So let's go to the 4th mode in A. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be D's mode. Okay? Now, the name of this would be Lydian. It looks just like the major scale, so if we play D major, the alteration we're going to make to put it in the key of A is going to be taking the 4 and sharpening it. So now I've got 10, 12, 9, 11, 12, 9, 11, 12. So you can kind of tell that interval is very different from the major scale. We're just changing one note from the major scale. A Ionian, A major, D Lydian. Okay, so think of it as the major scale with the sharp 4. The very next one, the 5th one, is going to be E. The 5th note in A is E. A, B, C sharp, D, E. Now this is going to be Mixolydian, another really fancy word that you can impress your friends with. This is going to be just like the major scale as well, the alteration being instead of, we're going to have a flat 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, regular 1. So middle, pinky, index, middle, pinky, index, middle, pinky. Now the nice thing about this is a very bluesy sounding thing because right here you can make a dominant 7 chord with this mode. Just like all these single notes can become modes or scales, they can also become chords. If you ever see like a 7 chord, like a A7 or a G7, that means you're taking that note, that 7th note from the Mixolydian mode to get that kind of bluesy sound. So again, we have the Ionian mode, the Dorian mode, sharp 6 from the minor scale, the Phrygian mode, flat 2 from the minor scale, the Lydian mode, sharp 4 from the major scale, The Mixolydian mode, flat 7 for the major scale. So that'd be the 5th one. We already did the 6th one. I'm actually gonna go lower and grab it. The F sharp minor scale. And that only leaves one more, the 7th note right here. This is gonna be the Locrian mode, and it's kind of the darkest one because this is where a diminished chord would exist if you've seen some of the other videos on diminished chords. But basically, it looks a lot like the minor scale with 2 alterations. So again, we have a G sharp with a flat 2 and a flat 5. 1, flat 2, 3, 4, flat 5. Now, if you've seen spellings from this, you might get conflicting information sometimes because if we have a 1, a flat 2, some people call this a flat 3 too because a minor third is related to the major scale as a flat 3. Don't get too hung up on this. I'm making these relative to the major or minor scale, so we're kind of working with 2 different alterations here. I personally think that's the best way to remember that. Some internet purists might get on my case about that, but I don't really care because I really think this is the best way to learn it. This really helped me learn it a lot, and that's basically it. So we have 7 shapes, but I really think it's easier to learn them as 2 shapes with small alterations. And this works in any key. These are totally movable scale shapes, etc., etc. And just by learning this, we've covered so much ground. We've covered from here to here. I mean, that's the entire fretboard. And we're just doing it 1 octave across. Eventually, we can maybe expand that to do 2 octaves to cover the entire string set. I really think a good way to start is by getting just the lowest 3 strings, getting 1 octave under your belt and switching between them, and then kind of branching off into there. But whatever works for you, really. So where this is valuable is you can kind of combine these with all the different chords. So again, like I said, this is the A major one. You can combine these notes with the A major chord. You can grab the next one, the B one, the Dorian. Maybe make that with B minor's chord, we'll go with that. The next one would be the C Phrygian. You could add that with the C sharp Phrygian. You add that with C sharp. You could do the next one, D. This would be a major chord too. The Lydian one. Now, this is kind of an extreme example where I'm just hitting a chord and getting into a position. But honestly, I think it's good practice to do it that way too because you're taking such a wide interval and kind of combining these shapes. So anyways, it's a great thing to practice this way, and that's why having that accompanying tab sheet of all the different modes is a great way to start learning positions. And then once you have that under your belt, you can kind of start mixing and matching them in ways that you want to play. Like if you're playing over a backing track or something, and maybe the backing track is just A to F sharp minor, A major to F sharp minor. You can start by soloing in the A major scale position, the Ionian mode. And then just kind of going back and forth between those 2 modes. Maybe if a C sharp jumps into it, you can jump into the C sharp spot. There's a million different things you can do with it. But the one thing that I'm really trying to do is just clear up a lot of the confusion of modes because they are kind of confusing when explained a certain way. So really just maybe take a couple at a time, take some time with them and just kind of practice back and forth, and then get your ear to train what's different about each one. Like that Lydian one. Oh, I like that one. It's got that sharp 4. You can kind of start combining them. Make a lot of different sounds with them. So, hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on the modes. The price of the Gibson Les Paul Standard, I've got nothing for you on that one. But if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks a lot. So if this helped shed any light on the modes at all, I encourage you to click some of the surrounding videos because, as we all know, education is very key and it's the best way to become a better guitar player because I know you've been shredding it and practicing a lot. So let's get your music theory on point by clicking any of these videos around and always let us know what you guys think. Thanks a lot.